Good. Okay. So, how do you define the financial management first of all? What are the things which forms a part of the financial management when it comes to the corporate level? Now, over a period of time, various experts have given their own definition of the financial management. Some of them have given a more generalized definition in nature. Some of them are specific. Some of the definitions were exhaustive. Some of the definition were open-ended. Let's see that how they have defined the financial management, so that we'll come to know that what's the overall objective can be. First, that was given by a Solomon, that it is concerned with the efficient use of important economic resource, namely capital funds. Now, if you go through with that definition, it's focusing more on the efficient use. When I'm using the word efficient use, that means it's more about using your resources to the optimum extent. Now, how you are spending the capital funds, the focus is more on that. So the definition given by the Solomon is inclining more towards how you are spending it. But I feel that how you are spending it, is not a complete definition. Financial management is much more about it, So let's go to the definition given by S.C. Kuchel. Financial management deals with the procurement of the funds and their effective utilization in the business. Now here I can mark two more words. One is the procurement, another one is the utilization. The first one was exclusively focusing on the efficient use, that was, the utilization. The second one is consisting of two things. One is the procurement, that means how to get it, from where to get it, what are the points to be taken into consideration while getting the money, and how to use it effectively in the business. So it is consisting procurement as well as the efficient use. But again, I feel that financial management is much more than this. Then there was a definition given by Howard and Upton, who were the financial experts, the professors in the academic field. Financial management as an application of general managerial principles to the area of financial decision making. I think that definition is pretty much generalized in nature. All the management principles that you have seen, you have observed, you have followed, applying all those management principles in the financial decision making is called as the financial management. Now, sir, what can be the financial decision making? Each and every decision where money is involved is a financial decision. Either you are receiving that money, or you are making the payment of that money, or you are receiving the money in advance, or you are making the payment outstanding. This every sort of a decisions are the financial decisions. So applying the management concepts, managerial principles in the financial management is something called as the financial management, pretty much generalized in nature. But in and all, if I tell you about the financial management, these are the three core areas of financial management. Core areas. It also includes the various other aspects, but these three are considered to be the core of financial management, the heart and soul of financial management. First one is the capital structure, which is given to you in middle. Capital structure stands for how to gather the money. What should be the appropriate and sufficient mix of various sources of finance? If you are taking the debt from the financial institutions, borrow, if you are doing the borrowings, if you are going with the equity shareholders, or you are going with the preference shareholders what should be the appropriate mix. Your capital structure should be as per the constraints and bottlenecks faced by your company. The capital structure should be in accordance with the overall requirement of the company. The capital structure should be such in nature that it reduces your overall cost of finance. Overall cost of finance needs to be reduced, and the value of the firm is increased to the maximum extent. That is the first area of financial management. I can call it as the core area. Then it's about the capital budgeting, which is about spending, the capital investment decisions we make, the long-term decisions which are irreversible in nature, which are going to affect the company for a very long period of time. All such sort of a capital expenditures into your fixed assets, into your businesses, into your brands, into your startups are the capital budgeting decisions. How to evaluate those decisions? How to decide that whether to invest or not? What are the parameters, criteria to decide whether to invest or not? How to do the risk analysis of any project? This everything forms a part of the capital budgeting. And the third most important is the working capital management. You must have observed we have got the one module for each and every core area of finance. Capital structure, second module. This is third module. This one is the fifth module. Working capital management is about managing your current assets and current liabilities. All the assets which are expected to be realized within a normal operating activity period, I may call it within a 1 year, are called as the current assets and the current liabilities. Your creditors are your current liabilities. Bills payables, current liabilities. Short-term loans to be paid just in a few weeks to come, cash credit taken by you, overdraft taken by you from the bank, it's a current liability. Managing the current liabilities and current assets is called the working capital management. I have already stated my concern to all of you that this is where majority of the firms get stuck. This is the point. This is the area where you will have to put your continuous efforts. You will have to build the system for the day-to-day management of the cash and creditors. And here is where the people lack the expertise. Majority of the firms which have been closed, the effective working capital management policy, the lack of working capital management policy is the reason behind it. Let's move to the risk return trade-off now. Now see, we have understood that what the financial management is all about. What are the three core areas of financial management? Now, see, every financial decisions in the financial management will be involving the risk return trade-off. When I'm using the word risk return trade-off, no, that means every decision comes with the bundle of some specified risk and some expected return. And every decision in the financial management is to be evaluated from the risk and return perspective. You cannot just focus only on the return. You will also have to focus on what amount of risk you are taking to earn that return. That should be suitable with the overall objective of the company. We'll come to that objective, but before that, I think we should explore more about the risk and return trade-off. Every decision you take, no. Let me just give you a one decision that one, say, let's take the capital structure decision first. As I said, capital structure decision is more about gathering the money, right? Now, if you take the loans and borrowings from the financial institution, it comes with the risk. Because loans and borrowings are something for which you take the fixed commitment, and any fixed commitment you take, my dear friends, is a risk for you. Any sort of a fixed commitment is taken even without earning the money in advance is a risk for us, yes or no? That is applicable even in the personal relationship management. Do not take the commitment if you do not have the risk taking capacity. Do not give the commitment if you do not have the risk bearing capacity. You have a responsibility to pay back to the banks and financial institution at any cost now. Whether there will be a corona or no corona, whether there will be a COVID or no COVID, whether you will be able to make the profits or no profits, whether you will be able to generate the good amount of sales or no amount of sales. This is the fixed commitment you have taken. You will have to gather this money anyhow, in any circumstances, in any situation. But the problem is, the thing is, you are taking the risk in the banks and financial institution when you take the money borrowing, but that borrowing is cheap. The money you take from the bank and financial institution is cheap. That is a cheap source of finance. You can gather it just by 7 or 8% of the loans and borrowings rate. But the equity, if you give, no, then equity comes with a bundle of advantages and disadvantages. The expected rate of return from any person in the equity will be quite high as compared to the debt, because those people are taking the various types of risk, who are investing in your company. They are taking the risk of market fluctuation. If your company is publicly traded, they are taking the risk of market fluctuation. Your share price may go up, may go down. But if they would have invested in a fixed deposit somewhere, they would have surely got 7 or 8% of the return without incurring any kind of risk. They take the risk of non-payment of dividend. This is the fluctuation of market. They take the risk of non-payment of dividend. Company may pay the dividend, company may not pay the dividend. Company is not having any obligation to mandatorily pay the dividend to the equity shareholders. They are taking the risk of it. They are also taking the risk of the ones who are investing in your company in equity shares. They are also taking the risk of non-payment of capital at the time of liquidation. When the company will shut down, at that time, the last priority to pay the money from the assets realized would be of equity shareholders. First of all, whatever the amounts you get by liquidating all the assets of the company, it would be distributed to the outsiders' liability, my friends. If any money would be left, then it would be distributed to the preference shareholders, because preference shareholders gets the preference over others. And then if any money would be left, it would be distributed to the equity shareholders. Residual claim on the assets. Last claim on the assets. If anything would be there at the end, then only they would get it. So they are taking so many risks. And if they are taking so many risks, they also expect higher return. They expect the return in terms of dividend or in terms of increase in market price of their share. So what I'm trying to say is that company will be obliged to pay them more as compared to the debt and borrowings. Higher the risk, higher the chances of return. Equity shareholders have taken the higher risk. Higher would be the chances of return for them. For a company, equity is safe because it is a ownership, But for investors, equity is something which is not stable because they are taking so many other risks. For company, it is a long-term source of finance they have gathered, which will remain for a lifetime until and unless they are cancelled for some specific reasons provided by the laws and regulations. They are going to remain permanently. What I'm trying to say is that Every decision in the financial management is to be considered from the spectacles of risk and return. At the one side you have a risk, at another side you have a return. You need to do the trade-off between the two. You go to the capital budgeting decision, which is investment of your funds, over there too, my dear friends, you need to consider that which projects are more risky. There are specific parameters to identify and to evaluate those risks. You go to the working capital management, whether to allow 12 days or 10 days of period to the debtors is a financial decision, yes or no. If you allow 10 days of credit period to your debtor is a financial decision. What will be the effect of this decision on your risk and return? You allow some period to your debtors, you are extending their credit period. It's a risk taken by you. After 12 days, 15 days, the debtor may pay that money, may not pay back that money. You are taking that risk. So what is the return trade-off you are getting in return? So every decision making in the financial management is to be seen from the spectacles of risk and return. Now, return will always be risk-free rate plus risk premium. Now, whatever the risk you are taking, no, my dear friends, you get a premium for that. That is called as the risk premium. See, why would anyone first of all take any sort of a risk? They are getting some return which is more than the returns provided by the safe assets, right? If you go to the fixed deposit, they give you without incurring any kind of a significant risk, 7 or 8% of the return. So if you are coming to the equity stock market, my dear friend, your rate of expectation will be at least higher than 8%. Yes or no? By taking so many risks, if you are just earning 7%, what's the meaning of it? So risk-free rate is something which is minimum expected rate from any investment. And more risk you take, for that you keep on getting the, premium. And this is how your expected return would be. So I can say that is risk-free rate plus risk premium. That is your expected rate of return from the any investment or a stock, any decision. I hope that's pretty much clear to everyone. May I have a confirmation till now, please, from all the students? यहाँ तक सब कुछ सही है? Anywhere if you face any problem, anything which is to be explained in a better way, all of you? Good. Very good. I can see some students here. Daksh, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I was observing the videos of the advanced Excel applications and you were not focusing in that. You were just saying that you could understand, but I could see that you were not focusing well over there. कुछ नहीं कर रहे थे तुम, पूरा दिन टाइम पास करते रहते थे। उस समय मेरे को मालूम है कि तुमने कुछ नहीं किया था।
सर किया था मैंने।
क्या किया था तुमने?
सर आपके साथ साथ बैठ के काम कर रहा था मैं। आई कैन शो यू द वर्क ऑल्सो।
क्या शो यू द वर्क? कुछ नहीं कर रहे थे, मुझे मालूम है।
सर आपके
हेमली,
साथ बैठ के काम कर रहा था।
I don't want to listen this now. Hemali, can
Yes,
you hear me?
yes,
You
sir.
were also not doing it. You were also not doing it. I know it. I was just referring to those videos and I could see that you people were just not doing anything over there.
Sir, I guess you said I was giving fast answers in some sessions. Not possible.
What was not
सर
possible?
सेम हियर ऑल्सो।
I know you're messing with us, sir.
I'm not able to get your point, Hemali.
I know you're joking with us.
Why would I joke with you?
Because
Joking with us.
Of course, sir, because I and Daksh were answering constantly in all the sessions.
पोपट कर दिया है तो सर को you you
सर जो
identify.
चीज सबको पता है सर, वो कैसे पॉसिबल हो सकता है कि मैं और हिमाली नहीं कर रहे थे?
Okay, anyway, before I faced that puppet, let's go to the situation. I was scolding both of the students. Now it's a case study for all the students who have joined here. You will have to observe that when I had put both of them in a similar kind of a situation, I had scolded both of them for some, acts which they might have done, might not have done. Obviously, they were performing very well. Do not take it personally. But can you just observe that who was more reactive in nature? I had put both of them in a similar type of a situation, similar type of consequences. I had treated both of them equally with the same amount of scolding, but still the reaction from both of this was slightly different. Who was more reactive? May I have the interaction from the other students, please? Hemali or Daksh? Who was more reactive? Miss
So
Titli.
Daksh was reactive and Himali was proactive.
Okay, Hemali was proactive, so we have got a better word for Hemali. Good. More reactive was Millie. Millie again saying that yes. Saraswati said that that Hemali was calm. Even Mitesh is saying that Daksh was more reactive. Yes, Hemali was very patient. That was not something which was pre-planned. That was very spontaneous exercise actually. So I just wanted to say that who was more reactive in that. Let's go to the concept called sensitivity when it comes to the risk. See, same way, if you put two stocks, two shares in a same situation, same circumstances, same kind of consequences, same situation, both of the stocks may react differently. And that we would see from the historical behavior of the stock. If I tell you again a good example, Nifty is the stock market index of India, right? Top 50 companies are forming a part of the Nifty, the index established by the National Stock Exchange of India. Now that was considered to be the index of entire stock market. Now entire Nifty was say down by 30%, then some of the stocks were comparatively way down somewhere around 70 to 80%. And some of the stocks were down just by 10 to 15% within few weeks of Corona. Some of the stocks reacted too heavily. They got down they got down by 70 to 80%, and some of the stocks were very stable in nature. The reaction was just 10 to 15%. Now that was the case of downtrend when the entire market was going down. If there would be an uptrend, when entire Nifty would be going up by just 30%, the 70 to 80% stocks will again go up by 70 to 80%, and those stable stocks which do not react much will go up just by 10 to 15%. Now this is the indicator of sensitivity, and in finance we have called beta to measure the sensitivity of any investment avenue. You're investing in anything, how to measure a sensitivity, and how you measure the sensitivity by doing the relative analysis of the situation, because you do not have the standardized parameter for everyone, that if the beta is more than this, then it is more sensitive, less than this, then it is less sensitive. No, that needs to be compared with the other stocks, and then you can see that which one are more reactive, which one are less reactive. Now, as I have stated here, my friends, that this is applicable both in downtrend and uptrend. When there would be a downtrend, they would be crashed like anything, this 70-80% stock. And when there would be uptrend, they would go up by anything. So again, the risk return trade-off is being paid off, is been established, is been proven right. Higher the risk, higher the chances of return. Here in this case, the first parameter of the risk we have seen is the sensitivity. How sensitive you are to the changes taking place. And we have got one indicator to check the sensitivity, which is called beta. There is a complicated maths involved over there. We'll get into it after some time. But this is the beta through which you can identify the sensitivity. If you see the beta of say 1.2, then you can interpret it like if the entire market is going up by 1, then this stock will go up by 1.2. So it is reacting more as compared to the market. If the beta is 0.3, if the entire market is going up by 1 unit, your stock is going up only by 0.3. But that is applicable at the downtrend as well, because they would be quite stable in nature. This is called the sensitivity. Let me go to another criteria to find the risk of any of the investment. You people are already aware about it, but I want to again take an example so that you get it in a better way. Say there are two options given to you. There are two options say given to you. One is stock number A, another one is stock number B. Say A was Himalayan, B was Daksh. Now there is a one stock you had invested in that, Himalayan Limited. On the very first day, the price was 100. Then it went to 102. Then it went to 101. Then it went to 103, 108, 112. These are the daily prices of Himalayan Limited we have seen. Then there is one more stock which is Daksh Limited. You had invested with the same amount of money in that. Then it went down by 90, 290. On the third day it got 105. Then here again you have 94, 111, 118. Now if you have just one option to invest in any stock out of these two, or these two avenues are given to you, which avenue will be preferred by you? May I have the interaction from the students, please? And what is the reason behind it? Which investment will be preferred by you? What is the reason behind it? See, you are investing 100 rupees in both the stocks. Your amount of investment is same.
So first option.
Okay, one by one, yes. That girl, please, yes. Which one? First one. The reason behind it?
Yes, sir.
Reason?
Because it is showing a consistent increasing trend and the risk involved seems to be less.
Okay, so those people are saying A, they are saying it's consistent. Risk
First
is
one,
less.
Limited one.
What is the reason behind it?
So fluctuations are very less. Fluctuation has happening, but it is not that too much.
Okay, deviations are less. Okay, then anyone who is preferring B over A?
Yes, sir.
Yes, what is the reason behind it?
Sir, if we see the long-term trend of it, the return is high
The return is high.
and risk is also high.
Risk is obviously going to be high over there.
Mm.
Okay. Anyone else would like to state any point which are not covered? See, Daksh is giving you a very high amount of return. From 100 to your investment value going to 118. The amount of profit that you will be making will be 18 as compared to the amount of 12 rupees profit you are making here. Daksh Limited gives you too high amount of return. It's not just about it, I tell you. It gives you much return, even that is more than 18. आपने सिर्फ 18 ही दिखा, 18 से भी बहुत ज्यादा दे रहा है वो return. Now see, if you could have identified some investment opportunities, no one was telling you to remain static and to keep your position open. You could have identified your entry and exit points. See, instead of 100, if you would have invested at 90 and you would have sold it at 105, then what is the amount of profit you will make there? 15. Again, you identified an investment opportunity at 94 and you have sold it at 111. So what is the amount of profit you are making there? 94, 111, so 16. Again, see, at a time you are taking only one position, but you are just identifying your entry and exit point. Then you are again investing at 111. You feel that again it will go up, right time. You have sold your entire position, but again you have bought it at 111. 111, 118, 7 rupees of profit again. 16 plus 15 plus 7. How much? 38.
38.
Now see, higher the deviations you get, no, more entry and exit points you get. Please put it in the back of your mind, first of all. Because you know that this stock is reactive in nature, higher the deviations it is causing. And we in finance believe that anything which is abnormal in nature will again come back to the mean. Mean reversion is the concept followed by the finance people. If you just put any stock randomly, no, they will again come back to the mean. I'm not using the word mean for the price. Let's do not go into that technicality as of now. But it's been observed that anything which is abnormal in nature will again come back to the mean, which is ordinary, average. Now, if you can identify these deviations, if you were very strong enough with your technical and fundamental research, the amount of profit which this stock could have given you would have been just incomparable, right? लेकिन सर उल्टा भी हो सकता था, किसी ने 100 पे लिया और 90 पहुंच गए, 90, and you were like, oh my god, so much of loss I'll be making, I'm already there in the loss. You are selling it with loss of 910. Then it again went up, you were looking at, sir, 105 is the price. Then you again purchased it. You were like, price is going up, oh my god, everyone is purchasing it, is again going up, bouncing up. Then it again got crashed. You again made a loss of 11. Then you said that I do not want to enter into this trade because I have made 2 times of loss here. You are there in the loss of minus 21. So again, it's been proven that higher the risk. Now here in this case, the risk is the fluctuation, the deviation. Higher the risk, higher the chances of return. Why higher the chances of return? Because you get your entry and exit points more, right? And even if you just have put your position open, you just entered at 100 and you exited at 118, then also you would have earned the good amount of profit here, let alone identifying this entry exit points. And to understand about this risk, we have got the standard deviation, which will be identifying the volatility. So any investment avenue, my dear friends, would have the various types of risk. The risk can be a default risk. The risk can be, the market fluctuation. But statistically speaking, if you want to identify and evaluate the risk, you have got the two parameters. One is the parameter of sensitivity, another one is the parameter of volatility. For sensitivity, you check the beta. For volatility, you check the standard deviation. And by taking these two factors into account, you take your financial decision. So while checking this risk return trade-off, my dear friends, you consider these two factors more when it comes to specific about, the stocks and shares. All the securities which are traded in the market, it can be stocks, it can be derivatives, it can be some of the debt instruments, it can be exchange traded funds, it could be any other security which are traded in the stock market, in the stock exchanges. They would always have two types of risk. One is the sensitivity risk, another one is the volatility risk. And every one of us are bound to bear those risks. You cannot nullify this risk. Yes, you can diversify your portfolio. That is the one more thing aspect of portfolio management, but we'll get into it after some point of time. What I'm trying to say right now is there is always a risk return trade-off that has been observed in every situation, any kind of a decision related to the finance. You take the higher risk, you are bound to get the higher return. If you are stable in nature, you do not want to take too much of risk. It will give you the short guaranteed benefits, but the possibility of earning the extraordinary returns will be nullified. You go to any investment avenues, you take the fixed deposits, the risk is less, you get the less amount of return. You go to the real estate, the risk would be a little bit more than the fixed deposit, but slightly lesser than the equity stocks. You get a moderate return there. You go to the equity stocks, again you compare that. Which are the equity stocks which gives you the highest return? Only those equity stocks which are more volatile in nature can give you the highest return. So this is the risk return trade-off. I hope that's absolutely clear to everyone. And this is applicable to every decision in the financial management, not just the investment decision, capital structure decision as well, working capital management decision as well. But for the investment decisions, you have got two parameters to check. For others, you will have to consider other parameters. For project as well, you can consider the standard deviation, that how risky the project is, how much volatile the project is. Standard deviation of the cash inflows generated from the project. You can check it. For working capital management decision, again, the risk parameters would be slightly different. We'll come into that whenever the topic will come. But there is always a risk return trade-off. So that's it from my side. If you have any question or query, you can let me know. Else I'm assuming that you are absolutely clear. Yes, fundamentals, so which can be looked upon, Mr. Jaydev. But here the concern was about risk. Anyway, we'll go into that. Okay, please put your enrollment number as a mark of your attendance. And all the students whose examples have taken, do not worry, it was not personal in nature. It is just a pure pun. Hemali had identified correctly. और सर का हो गया था पोपट. Okay, that's it from my side. Bye, take care, sayonara. Enjoy the rest of the day. See you all in the next session.